At this point, you're either lying or incredibly stupid if you're still trying to convince people that the DNC isn't actively working against Bernie Sanders in this 2020 Democratic primary. After the incredible shit show that we just all witnessed, that the world just witnessed in Iowa, where a candidate running in the race pays a company full of his own supporters and donors to create an app that was meant to record the election results for the entire state of Iowa. And then that app just so happens to fail and was caught red-handed taking votes away from Bernie Sanders and changing the actual vote count. The most brazen election rigging that I've seen, arguably in my lifetime, because this is worse than what happened in 2016, because for all the shit that the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign did in 2016, they did not have Hillary Clinton paying for the mechanism to record votes that later was caught changing the votes. That didn't happen in 2016, to my knowledge. So we see the most brazen election rigging happen in Iowa. And what does the DNC do to assure public confidence that they aren't trying to tip the scales like they were caught doing in 2016? The Democratic Party hires a paid staffer for Pete Buttigieg, who was at the center of the entire Iowa scandal, not even a week ago, to be the voter protection director for the state of Nevada. At this point, it's just beyond comical. This is past parody. Now, let me read you the job description of a voter protection director, and you tell me if there's any other explanation short of the DNC is actively trying to give the Pete Buttigieg campaign an advantage in this election, and they're trying to undermine other candidates in the race, namely Bernie Sanders. Here's the job description. Develop, produce, and disseminate complete, accessible, and accurate voting information. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like I just mentioned, this Pete Buttigieg campaign was intertwined with the company that created the app for the Iowa caucus, and that app was caught red-handed changing the votes. And every single time that it was caught changing the votes, it just so happened Pete Buttigieg was the beneficiary. Now, someone from his campaign has a job overseeing the election system, the election process for the entire state of Nevada, and they're supposed to, quote, develop, produce, and disseminate complete, accessible, and accurate voting information. Like I said, this is just comical at this point. Let me continue. Recruit, train, manage, and serve as a resource for hundreds of volunteer lawyers, poll observers, hotline staffers, boiler room personnel, county liaisons, and other volunteers during early vote and election day. Wow. Like I said, this is someone who, it's not like they are some apparatchik in the Democratic Party who's been floating around in the establishment and bouncing around from institution from year to year. No. This person in this very election cycle was working on Pete Buttigieg's campaign. In fact, she just left her job from Pete Buttigieg's campaign as a paid staffer to get this job as the Nevada State voter protection director. This is amazing. Advocate for changes to voting regulations and policies to enfranchise more voters. Okay, like I said, just what happened in Iowa. When Pete Buttigieg, after almost 4 days, and the final 3% of the caucus results were coming in, and those were from the satellite precincts. And for those of you who don't know, the satellite precincts are a new thing in the Iowa caucuses, where people who wouldn't be able to come out to join the regular caucuses in Iowa, whether it's because they had to work or whether it's because they were students and they were out of state or out of the country, whatever it is, they were allowed to go to have their own small caucuses. And it's a way to allow more people to be a part of the process, the alleged democratic process in Iowa. So the satellite caucuses allowed a lot of working class people, factory workers, people of color, immigrants, to participate in the process that normally wouldn't. After all of the shit that went down in Iowa, Pete Buttigieg said, hold the phone, everybody. We have a problem here. We can't allow these satellite caucuses to be counted. Why? It's not like he didn't know that was a thing. He didn't know the rules of all of this beforehand, and somebody just sprung up on him the day of the election. Oh, by the way, they're going to have satellite caucuses. He knew this, but what he didn't know was Bernie Sanders was going to blow his ass out in every single one of these satellite precincts. So when it became clear how Bernie Sanders was about to smash Pete Buttigieg in these satellite caucuses, Pete Buttigieg says we can't count them, even though these are disenfranchised people who would normally be allowed to be a part of the process. We're not going to count them because they don't want to vote for me. So he's willing to just throw out people's votes if they aren't going his way. And now, again, a paid staffer from that very same campaign who made the argument that those people's votes shouldn't count because they're not voting for Pete Buttigieg. Now, her job is to, for the entire state of Nevada, her job is to, quote, advocate for changes in voting regulation and policies to enfranchise more voters. Well, I guess they should add in a parentheses or with an asterisk next to it, unless they're not voting for Pete Buttigieg. Another part of the job description, quote, support other departments by fielding questions, creating training materials, and interfacing with outside counsel, leveraging relationship with election officials. Wow. So, I mean, what it sounds like is this person is basically in charge of the entire election process. That's what it sounds like. And this is stunning because, like I just said, this person was a paid staffer. Not 2 minutes ago was a paid staffer for a candidate in this race, and now they're overseeing the entire election process in Nevada. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. So you see why this whole incompetence argument, that shit doesn't fly with me anymore. When you hire people who are supposed to oversee very important functions of elections, which requires them by definition to be neutral and not picking sides in this election. When you go ahead and pick somebody who has direct connections to one of the campaigns running in that election, and then they just so happen to, on election day, we find out that there's all these unprecedented errors that always fall on the side of benefiting that very same candidate that they support. That's not incompetence. That's exactly what you'd expect to happen when you pick someone like that to be in what's supposed to be an objective position. That's called a logical conclusion. And honestly, it makes me cringe that people who call themselves lefties and progressives, like Sam Cedar and David Pakman, are coming out here and they're still saying all of this is more likely incompetence than anything else. How do you say that with a straight face? How do you say that with a straight face? Like I said, you're either lying or you're incredibly stupid, too stupid to be doing your job. It is crystal clear that the Democratic Party has decided to continue in the tradition of screwing over Bernie Sanders in this 2020 Democratic primary. And from here on out, we just need to decide exactly what we're going to do about it. Because it's not up in the air anymore. It's not a question. After what happened in Iowa, if you're going to choose someone who was a paid staffer from Pete Buttigieg's campaign to run the entire election process in Nevada, and then you're going to tell me you don't expect any more trickery, chicanery, and funny business to come out of this, then you must think I'm an idiot. You must think I'm an idiot. You're clearly doing this. This isn't incompetence. This is you trying to give Pete Buttigieg the advantage any way you possibly can by letting his people who support him run the entire election process. These are professionals. A lot of the time, these are people who went to law school. These are lawyers. So you mean to tell me you've been working in this field for 10, 15, 20 years in the field of election and politics and elections and all that stuff. And you can't see with your own eyes, just at face value, having someone who has a direct relationship to one of the candidates in the race, who worked for one of the candidates in this race on their campaign in this very same election cycle. If you don't see how that giant glaring conflict of interest is begging for some shady trickery, cheating shit to go down, if you say that you're not expecting any of that, you're lying. You're lying, because if the shoe was on the other foot, if Bernie Sanders, I don't know how, in some way Bernie Sanders got a paid staffer to, I don't know, run the entire election process in California, they would call foul. They wouldn't have it. They would go to the courts and they would try to stop the election before it even happened. That's how adamant they would be to prevent any type of conflict of interest like that from occurring. If it was Donald Trump in the general election and in all the different states, he had people who were just working, paid staffers in his campaign, now running the different elections in the different states. You think the Democrats, and then he just happens to win, and there's, of course, a bunch of shady shit going on, irregularities in the votes and not counting votes and all this stuff. And then Donald Trump just so happens to win at the end of the election. You think the Democrats who ran with the Russiagate nonsense, conspiracy theory for 4 years, you think that they will just, fair is fair. I guess even Stevens, it's just an election and we lost. No, fuck no. They would take it to court immediately. They would say this entire process was tainted and Donald Trump had his thumb on the scale. He had his people running the election. I don't know how anybody would believe the results. So I know for a fact that would be the reaction from Tom Perez and everybody else in the Democratic Party who was trying to pretend like this what they're doing with people to just campaign and having them basically run entire elections for the entire states in Iowa and Nevada, pretending like that's just fine. I know that they wouldn't have it if the shoe was on the other foot. So that means to me that this is deliberate and they know what they're doing is unethical and they know what they're doing is shady and it's going to result in preferential treatment to people who just campaign. I know that for a fact. So don't come out here and tell me that it's incompetence. Don't tell me that they're just tripping over themselves and they don't know what they're doing. And Tom Perez, oh man, I wasn't paying attention and I picked someone from a paid staffer for Pete Buttigieg's campaign to run the entire state election. Don't tell me that it's incompetence.